Hi, I'm Simon Rushton, and this is Taxi Chronicles podcast. On this podcast, we spontaneously interview unsuspecting passengers with their permission, allowing them to share their intimate life stories and concerns. As our slogan states, real riders, real stories. Some riders prefer to be anonymous, while others ask me to tell their story later on. Either way, there are all genuine 5 to 10 minutes stories, so sit back and enjoy this episode. Morning. Yes, we're back again. Today we have early hours of Sunday morning. I'm doing an airport run and I'm taking a Yank or American to the post office. Airport. His name's Daniel, and he works online teaching. He's explaining there's a whole heap goes on behind the scenes for online teaching, so we're going to learn about that and his experience of coming to England and just life in general, and let Joe Rogan style, just let the conversation flow where it flows and see how it goes. So nice to have you here today, Daniel.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Okay, so tell us about this online teaching. Furthermore, let's start with how you came to England. How was that? What inspired you? Things like that.
Yeah, sure. I originally came to. I left the United States in 2011, and to Germany, and then I lived there for 5 years. And then I came here in 2016 when I started working for the University of London as their head of learning development. And since then, I've been in online education and online education development in various capacities.
Mm-hmm. So you from there you jumped into the online thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How does that work? Explain that to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best way to understand it is that when you think of a TV show. TV shows need a producer, and they need a lot of people to film and edit and do all the production for making a great TV show. Well, that also takes place behind the scenes for online education, and many people don't realize this. This is a very big field. It's becoming very, very much more relevant these days in the times of COVID. Or post-COVID, when many more people are online. So my job is the vice president of digital media for an online education company, and I oversee all the media that is produced, and this can be animation or strictly filmed or remote filmed, etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is it a growing industry?
This is growing very rapidly. It's becoming very relevant. I would say that what we're witnessing right now, after the times of COVID-19, is we're witnessing a time when education used to center around a physical place, the university or the classroom, and now it's shifting to that it's going to center around online, and then everything else is going to orbit around that, and that's the world that we're moving to.
So you think this is just basically the future of education as we know it?
Yeah. So aside from doing my job as a vice president of digital learning for the company I work for, I'm also a PhD student at University College London, UCL, in artificial intelligence in education.
Okay.
And in there we're looking at trends that are happening in education in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we do definitely see that a general shift to online learning as being the primary way that people are going to learn. And that's not the only way. People still, it's the right tool for the job. Yeah. There's some things you can only learn in person. There are some things that you can only learn best with others, but there's a lot you can do online, and a lot more to come in terms of quality.
Yeah, I hear you. Because you've got practical courses like medical,
exactly.
Carpentry, basically all the key worker jobs, as they put it. that you have to be, at that stage.
Well, I think that's a great point. I usually use the example of medicine and like nursing, for example. So it's like if you're a nurse, right? Like if you need to learn like anatomy, like what bone is this, what muscle is this, or etc. Like you can learn that online by memorizing and seeing pictures and like testing and quizzing yourself. But if you're going to learn like how to interact with a patient, how to have conversation with somebody who's elderly that requires a special type of assistance, you can only do these types of things in person. So online is not going to replace that.
Yeah. So basically, our unit, because the way I'm looking at, I did some podcast. I follow a guy on YouTube called London Real.
Yeah, I do too, as well as Joe Rogan as well.
Yeah. So I did my podcast calls on there.
Yep.
And that's via Zoom, and I did a business accelerator course there. And what I found was that because of the kind of course it is and it's digital, it made the classroom obsolete.
Right.
The classroom was wherever you were at that moment. You just opened up your phone and you got taught, and you got out a pen and paper and took notes, or you recorded it and you reviewed it later on. But then obviously with other things, that's just not going to work. So it's like what's really happened, the universities are catching up, but now the universities will be like, a section of them will be online, and then you're going to have a section which is just practical. Because law could always be done online, I would have thought. You could just have the one, you heard of Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, I've followed him closely. I've read his books. Yes.
So he's a prime example of, as a Harvard lecturer, he just took his lectures and dumped them on the site.
Yeah.
Within 3 days, he can get 200,000 views, and that's of different people with different walks of life who want to learn. In that respect. Yeah.
So I think in that regard, like what we'll see going forward with education, for example, is like. It's like why would you take a lecture online from the seventh best person at business economics when you could take it from the number one person for nearly the same price? Like so we're gonna see basically we're gonna see, like, in the same way that we listen to podcasts, right? Like you listen to podcasts and you listen to the number one person you want to listen to right now, and that's much how education will become eventually, but what will be different is like the amount of people that you can interact with. It's so we have what you were talking about. We have two types of modes in online learning. We have asynchronous and synchronous. And what asynchronous means is like there's content that I can do at my own time. It's there when I want to deal with it, when I want to work with it, when I want to listen to it, and it's there, in the same way. Then there's synchronous, which is like, okay, now I'm going to log in now, and I'm going to Zoom call with a colleague or peer of mine, and we're going to talk about these problems. This is like real time, and these are kind of two very different modes, but they're also two parts of the same thing of learning today and online.
I see what you're saying, and I think the answer would be probably the way London Real structured their course is where you had Brian, who was like, let's say, the head, the main teacher in essence, who would come on. Who would come on and answer a certain amount of questions and a certain amount of things at times, but you'd have his like a lower team leaders, every team. So you'd have a class of I think there's 64. We've broken down into 3 groups, so it's 20 each whatsoever, and we'd have those are our team leaders who could answer our questions. But if they had an issues on our session with Brian, those questions were thrown to him. Yes. But there's also emailed to him prior, so he could answer them in front of everybody and just get the gist of what is what. Yeah. In that respect, but
So then let me ask you then, like, so it sounds like that's managed quite well. So Did you feel that you took away a lot from that? And do you think that, like, had it been in person, would it have been better, worse, or the same? Or
I think if you have a one-on-one tutor, it's always going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm speaking as an adult with a basic standard of understanding and what have you. So if you're talking about adult courses, I think that's acceptable. You need to be out. Your 80% of the work is at least going to be on you.
Mm-hmm.
Once they've given you the information and things like that. But I think it goes different when you're dealing with teenagers and below, because obviously children learn in different ways.
Well, I completely agree. If it's like there's a point in high school that, like, below high school, or say high school in the States, I guess it'd be secondary school or whatever.
Yeah.
When it gets much younger, online learning doesn't really work the same. At least at this point, they need a lot more presence and hands-on support from teachers or assistant teachers, etc. But
yeah, so I think the teachers will always be there. I do see, like, my daughter's 16, so the way she's learning now, because the government's decided to do this whole kind of online learning thing, and she's actually a personality more like her mum, where she can actually sit down and focus and really take things seriously. Where if you had told me to do that as a 16-year-old, I'm not completing anything.
No, I would have been off doing other things. Like
I would have just not been interested now. Whether that comes down to parenting as well, her mum's really set her down. She's been a support teacher before, so she understands the importance and the systems and all the rest of it. That's another thing. But I just see that there's a lot, children are complicated, or they're precious and complicated, so you've got to get it right for them. You've got to get it right. So I'd stick to the schooling thing, and also there's a lot goes on personally at home, so you can't expect children to learn from home. But if we're just sticking on the base of adult education, I think,
So let me put this out there though. So like, yes, for younger ages, it's exactly right. Like, it hasn't got there yet. But again, I want to stress it. It's not about online or in classroom, one or the other. Like, they're fighting each other, right? Like, it can all be both, right? You can have classroom and online. These things can happen at the same time. But what we're aiming for eventually, at least for adult learners or those in university and above, is what we call seamless learning, or at least that's what I'd call it. Where like, in the same way, if you have your phone and you pull up Netflix and you're going to watch a film, and then you stop that film in the middle of it, and then you go to your home and you go to your TV and you pull up Netflix there, and then you're going to pull up, and it's going to start at the same point that you were just finishing it. Well, we want learning to be that same way. It doesn't matter what device you're on, where you're at. It's just a continuous experience, no matter where you pick it up. And it's not, we're not there yet, but that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for learning to be continuous through your life, wherever you're at, all the time, and measured in ways that can be added to your profiles and help increase job prospects or performance.
I would say the internet, like YouTube, has proven that the human beings, especially adults, are very inquisitive still and want to learn.
Yes.
And that's opened up a whole new market.
Yeah.
Because everybody who's got any kind of skill, whether you're like a banker with Forex or what have you, is throwing it out there saying, no, we'll teach you on this, we'll do this, we'll do that, etc. And people are paying.
I would say that YouTube is the #1 learning platform on the world right now.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
I listen to Jordan Peterson religiously.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to lecturers, a Harvard lecturer who I would have to pay, what, $50,000 a year?
Are you familiar with Sam Harris as well?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I may,
you should check him out.
If I see his face, I might say, oh yeah, I've heard him before.
Yeah.
But I'm not one with names.
I've seen Jordan Peterson 4 times in person.
Is it?
Speaking? Yeah, with Sam Harris, but yeah, twice in Vancouver and then once in Dublin and London.
Okay. See, I'd love to go to one of his seminars or speeches of Jordan Peterson. Obviously, I don't know when he's coming around, but it's something I should actually kind of follow and ask him. When are you coming back, mate?
Yeah, exactly. He's a bit on a hiatus right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't see, for school kids, I don't see how you're going to do the universe, the learning on virtual. I think there's two. I have a 4-year-old, and the teachers in Kenya are saying when the schools are shut, they're going to teach him virtually. His mum tried to put him down. He's got a concentration span of 30 seconds.
Yeah.
There's a countdown for him picking up a toy and walking off. He's not paying attention. Do you see what I mean? And they want you to pay for that. Well, I'm not paying for that. That's ridiculous.
So this is way less in my field of expertise, but I do know that they're working on ways in which to monitor, students younger ages in the classroom, how they're learning, what they respond to, with other types of means where, whether it be like
colors, shapes, animals, things like that.
Well, I mean, using cameras and various ways to learn how they learn, a sense. Yeah. So
I know what you're talking, like Sesame Street kind of thing.
Exactly. So it's like when you're an adult learner, it's like quite clear, like they're on a computer and you can track all that data. So like, how do you gather data of students in the wild, of students in a classroom? And so they're working out how to do that. Though that does bring up some privacy issues, like, are the parents okay with their students being monitored in that way and their data being used? But that's another type of line of conversation.
Yeah, that is. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be happy with that at all. I just want you just go to school.
Yeah.
And you just, I'd be very old-fashioned in that sense. I'd want my children just to go to school, but me as an adult, I'd learn virtually. But yeah. So with this AI, you said you were head of AI or research of AI?
No, I did some PhD in it. I'm working on a PhD in it. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your dissertation? You said AI. Can you be a bit more specific about what you're actually doing in your dissertation? What your findings are going to be?
Yeah. So a bit more specific. It's loosely related to my work. As I was saying before, like in online education, it's like a TV show, and you want to film and produce, like content, videos of professors talking. So, but what happens if you need to produce videos for 40 courses, 40% professors, and you need to do this in a short amount of time, or whatever. So one of the things in education is the media is more simple, kind of lower quality, but there's a lot more of it. We need hundreds of hours of it, because we need all of these lectures filmed, and we need them done fast. So my PhD is focused on how can we speed this up? How can we use machine learning to create ways to make the production easier? And we have, or at least I have, like ideas and models and how to do that. But in most cases, like the technology is not there yet. It'll still be a couple years until the technology is really there. So, yeah, I mean, I know it probably sounds a bit abstract, but But like, yeah, imagine a person like being filmed from a talking head, like being filmed, as we call it, being filmed from the shoulders up. And imagine if you had to film 10,000 minutes of that.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if you could come up with something that could just, replicate previous videos and make it so much faster. So that's some of the things that I'm looking into.
Okay. Do you reckon we'll get there technology-wise, or do you reckon some things are there's it's one of those AI limitations?
Well, my personal opinion is that we'll eventually be superseded by AI. I don't see why humans are special. I see that it's totally plausible that AI, something else will become better than us, and maybe it'll be us. Maybe the enhancement or the next stage of evolution will be us,
Mm-hmm.
but integrated with some technology, or Neuralink, like Elon Musk or something like that is working on.
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion. I have a very kind of like more. A lot of people have more like optimistic, like, oh, humans will be around forever, and humans are the best thing that's ever will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just think I'm a little more practical.
Okay, that's interesting. So, would you encourage somebody to get into AI or follow the routes that you have with learning? And if so, what would be your advice to them what you've learned over the years that you wish you had known?
Yeah, I definitely would encourage people getting into AI or like online education. Like, we definitely need more people in the field. I think that I think like if I was going to have any type of particular advice, I would just say that I don't know, just I think be realistic and not biased. Like, just kind of as I was saying back there, like yeah, I mean, I think AI has great potential, but it's number one, it's not the promise or the salvation like some optimists want to say, and it's not the doom and gloom like some pessimists want to say. It's just a thing that's happening in our technological evolution, and learn it, figure it out, embrace it, don't judge it, but help steer it to do something positive for humanity.
Yeah. So in other words, accept the findings for what they are, don't try and make them what they're not.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And the last but not least, because I know it's early morning, I can see you're struggling back. If you can see this brother, he's struggling to stay awake, but you've done a good job. What's the impact you want to have on the world?
I think I would say there's 3 points of impact I want to have, and the reason why I got into online education. Number one is I'd like to see cheap, if not free, education proliferated around the world to make the world a more liberal and rational place. Meaning like with online education, like education can almost be free, and it can be to anybody who has a computer, whether you're in Afghanistan or Uganda or any part of the world, and I'd like to see like more of that happening, and more people's like economic prospects being raised. Number two, I think that online education, or just education in general, is a counterbalance to the parts of our economy that are trying to manipulate us. And what I mean by that is that a Google, a Facebook, Instagram, a Twitter, all of these things are vying for our attention, and they're trying to grab our attention, and they're trying to manipulate us to get more of our attention and influence us. But what online education does is it basically gives us agency. It gives us power back. The job of education, of online education, is not to grab your attention, but is to give you tools that you can walk away from the screen, improve your life, and then come back to learn more, to walk away again, improve your life more. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very different thing than what a Facebook or something else is trying to do. And then the third and final thing is that like I had learning disabilities. I'm dyslexic, and it's some other various things, and like I grew up in school, and I thought education was so shitty, and I just wanted to get into it and make better videos, better content, better stuff, that like the stuff that I wish I had that I could learn, and so like I hope that I'm making content these days that that people like me will appreciate, as well as everybody else.
Okay, that's good. So thanks for that. If people want to find you, any professors or any people out there, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, I guess I'm on Twitter at JD Liker, Leiker, at Twitter. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, and have a safe flight.
All right, thank you so much.
We hoped you liked that episode. Keeping in mind, we never know who we're going to interview. We post twice a day, 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. GMT. Have you ever considered the future economies to invest in? Why not listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories? Considering Africa has the fastest growing economies and population on Earth, and has done for many years, it holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. We publish twice a week, Tuesday with a guest investor, and Fridays talking about investment, politics and history, providing a clear understanding for any potential investor.